ADHD Babes, the podcast, a podcast hosted by the ADHD Babes community for the community. Join us every 2 weeks to share in our babes' personal experiences, gain useful tools, and be educated by special guests in topics such as ADHD management, relationships, general well-being, tech and fun, culture, and more. Please note, nothing mentioned during the podcast is meant as a diagnosis. If you believe you have ADHD, please seek professional advice and visit or join ADHDbabes.com for help with diagnosis. No clinical diagnosis is required to join. And now, you're listening to the next episode of ADHD Babes, the podcast.
Hello, and welcome to a new episode of ADHD Babes, the podcast. Thanks to all our listeners so far for joining us. Today's episode is hosted by me, Kessie.
And me, Shireen. And in this episode, we're going to be discussing the workplace, exploring the difficulties ADHDers may face and how best to navigate the workplace.
Joining us in the discussion, we're joined by ADHD Babe Salon and special guest Gloria Sherrod, a trained therapist and mental health educator. Welcome to both of you. Before we get started, a quick update for our ADHD Babes. We have now officially launched the ADHD Babes website, where you'll find a blog posts and resources and just learn a bit more about us and what we do. We've also been working towards becoming more sustainable as an organisation and increasing our capacity to support the community. So please keep your eyes peeled as we launch our new membership. And details about this can be found on the website www.adhdbabes.com.
Gloria, can you tell us how you became aware of your ADHD and what motivated you to become a coach and an educator?
Yeah, so I kind of had an inner knowing ever since I knew what ADHD was that I probably had it, but I kind of was able to skate by in school. I didn't do amazingly, but it wasn't something that I was held accountable for very harshly growing up. So, I got the C's and sometimes D's and F's, but I got by. And I think that it was all down to the fact that I was extremely disorganized. My locker barely closed half the time in school. My desk always had stuff spilling out of it at all times. And then that was finally not acceptable at all in grad school. And that's when I decided to try to get a diagnosis. And my first time trying to get a diagnosis from a doctor, she was like, "How are you in a master's program and you have ADHD? There's no way." And then that was the only resource I had. I couldn't afford to go anywhere else. So that was it for a couple of years. And then when my daughter started having some difficulties in school, she first got diagnosed. And then I was like, okay, well, we have these resources I can get diagnosed too, and I need to be able to support her as well. And so I got my diagnosis, and that's kind of the direction I ended up going in. I did my final project in my grad program on ADHD, and then I wrote my book, and everything kind of unfolded from there.
Oh, wow. That's
Awesome.
interesting. Yeah, I had a slightly different experience. I was fine in school because there was so much structure, but then when I got to working is when the chaos started, and the need for a diagnosis came about. So it's interesting with speaking to people and at what point in their lives the ADHD shows up. Do you know what I mean? But incredible that you've now dedicated your life to it,
Yeah, I was just thinking, because I'm in my mid-30s and I only just got diagnosed in January. So it feels really weird to kind of know that what was going on was my ADHD. I completely failed school. I had to keep I got to university, but to be able to do it, I kept trying, kept failing. But to be able to do it, I had to keep making up extra courses to top up what ones that I failed. So I eventually got there, but I never knew why. I just couldn't click with things, and I just did so badly at school. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to see everyone's like experiences, how like some kind of like coped quite well at school and then like some kind of didn't.
Yeah, I think it's like, I guess Gloria, you'll know about this more than I will, but it's to do with like, obviously everyone's ADHD is different, and I guess if your school like was like created an environment where you could maybe not struggle as much, maybe there was more structure there, or they held you more accountable for whatever reason, you were able to like go by, like with it going under the radar, and then at some point you got into an environment where you weren't able to do that anymore and your symptoms became much more apparent. And I guess that's just like different for everyone, isn't it?
For sure. I would say too, for me, it depended on the teacher. Like there were some classes that I did amazing at. The teacher and the subject. There were certain subjects that when it came to ones that I wasn't interested in, or math or science, that did not go well for me. I think the math was more so, I always pronounce this wrong. Dyscalculia is how I've been pronouncing it, but that's
yeah.
I'm actually going to try to get diagnosed for that soon.
Okay.
But that is the learning disabilities. That factor is also a thing as well with ADHD, or some have it, some don't.
Yeah, there's a lot of comorbidities, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So if we get into the topic, I'm quite interested to start with what challenges ADHDers might face. Like I said, like at school, I didn't particularly struggle. But the thing, when I started working, I really struggled with obviously lateness and just people holding me to like incredibly high standards because I'd done so well. And obviously I didn't know I had ADHD at the time. But yeah, and just not being able to meet those standards, but I was used to, not particularly struggling. So for me, it was just like a big learning curve. So what challenges have you guys faced, in your careers?
So for me, when I first started working, when I was still in school, I did a few different things. So it's interesting to kind of compare and contrast how I did at these different jobs. But when I first started, I was in the restaurant industry, like fast food restaurant. And so that was really easy for me because it was a lot of moving around. I think at first remembering all the rules was difficult, but once I had the rules, like I was the person that had the rules, like I knew everything, and I was really quick. So that was good. Being on time, not so good, but they were okay with that because I did well at my job. And then I was a daycare teacher after that. And that went well, as for the same reasons. I was able to like do a lot of active stuff, having fun with the kids. There were sometimes some difficulties because my energy, my very active energy, rubbed off on the kids a little too much at times. But other than that, it was nice. It was fun. Keeping my classroom clean and all that, that was difficult, but there were always other people that could do some of that stuff. I really started struggling when I became a therapist, originally in a community mental health setting. Anyone who's in mental health will know exactly, just from me saying community mental health, like, oh yeah, there's a lot of notes to keep up with. The assessments that we did are like 13 pages long. So that's like, if I had 5 clients in a day, that's 5 13-page assessments I had to fill out and complete.
Wow.
And then notes on each session with those people, and keeping up with those notes and all of that was hard for neurotypical people. But for me, it was like I was drowning constantly. And at that point, I couldn't do it without help. And I think at that point going forward, at any workplace, it was difficult for me to keep up with all the behind the scenes that I did not anticipate. I thought I'd be talking to people for a living and that was it. But no, there's also paperwork involved. So that was a challenge.
Yeah, keeping track of that sounds like a nightmare. How about you, Salom?
Before I speak, I'm just really interested, Gloria, you may have mentioned before, if you don't mind mentioning, are you diagnosed like combined, inattentive, or hyperactive?
I'm diagnosed combined.
Combined, okay, yeah. Because for me, yeah, people might have heard in the last episode that I got diagnosed quite recently, but I always had a suspicion, strong suspicions throughout my life. The difficulties got really big for me in university, in my undergraduate. And basically, as time went on in work, I became less and less tolerant to like the stimulations around work, the lack of structure sometimes in some workplaces, because really work is where I get my routine, is where I get my structure, because I find it very difficult to attain it in my home life, in my personal life. So what I was finding was that when I was in workplaces where they didn't offer that kind of routine and structure that I liked, they, you ask a question, what is the process for this? And they're like, we don't know, that I would end up quitting jobs quite a lot, because I just was like, I can't have chaos at home and at work. So a lot of the struggles that I had were related to like my tone, like getting burnt out really quickly because I hyper focus too much sometimes on things. Other issues that I've had is also like people misinterpreting me as well, quite frequently. And then I think, yeah, getting bored in my jobs, especially with very routine things like paperwork. I had one job where I went to work abroad and I would fall asleep every single day. I'd have to hide in the bathroom to basically reactivate my brain to continue the job, because it was causing mistakes, really serious mistakes in the nature of the job. So yeah, I realized I cannot do jobs where I'm just like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 every single day.
Yeah, like the self-awareness and then knowing your strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, exactly. It was a lot of trial and error. I think with late diagnosis, a lot of us are just going through trial and error a lot of the time, until we're like, I've exhausted. I've done so many adjustments by myself. I've learned all of these weird and wild ways to kind of adjust in the workplace, and now I need help, basically. So yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because like I didn't have any idea about like ADHD really, and I haven't like worked in a while. So it's kind of interesting to look back at when I was working, like stuff that I dealt with. Like I was always late. Like I knew what time I had to be there, but every day I was always late without fail.
Time blindness is so
like,
real.
Right? It's like, come on, like what time you've got to be there. It says it on your form, just do it. But I just couldn't. And then like I kind of found like also at work that sometimes I was kind of judged as like aggressive and stuff for being just really anxious and quiet, which is kind of weird I don't get the translation between me being really anxious and quiet and then someone kind of just perceiving me as aggressive and unfriendly. And that's just happened to me like so many times. And it's just like, I don't know. I just don't get how that works. But yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, I struggled a lot. And I also didn't find out that I had dyslexia until I got to uni. So that's like another thing as well that has affected like so much in my life. So it's kind of weird to like get these diagnoses. I hope I said that right. As as an adult. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's just crazy because you kind of look at it and you think, if only I had that support, like things would be better. Or if I knew how to ask for that support, it can be really hard to know what you need and what to ask for, I guess.
Well, knowing that, I think to know that you need it. Like I put so many of my problems down to like my own character, my own personality. I just thought I was broken because I didn't think I had ADHD, right? So me being late was like, well, I obviously don't care enough, or I'm obviously lazy, or I'm obviously this, I'm obviously everything everyone's telling me I am, because there's no like legitimate reason for me not to be able to like get to work on time. I know what time I need to be at work. I don't know why I'm late all the time. Like, it seems so silly, but now that I have like diagnosis, it makes complete sense, you know? So, yeah, I completely get you.
And it's so funny that like all three of you have the issue of lateness, because that wasn't really like I said, I really like the routine. So I really like to be there at 8, between 8 and 8:50, leave at blah, blah, blah. But it was quite interesting, Gloria, when you were talking about your fast food job, that they didn't care you were late because you did the job well, because I find that so valuable in a workplace. And like, Gloria, did you have issues with any other jobs where like, even though you were doing such a good job, they were still on your case about those kind of things?
Oh, absolutely. I'd worked at a couple restaurants before the one that I did really well at, and they were like, you need to not be late. They were irritated. I mean, you name it. I've had so many different issues, but if I could think of the jobs that really didn't go well and they didn't care if I was doing a good job or not, there were quite a few of those as well.
It's really fortunate, because some work, not even some, quite a lot of workplaces are really rigid about those things. But I guess now with more I don't know if flexible working on your side is becoming more of a thing, like core hours and things like that. It kind of helps being able to have that kind of 2-hour flexi time between 1 hour, what am I talking about, between 9 and 10 to get into the office or on your laptop.
Yes, definitely. I've seen a lot more flexibility. And that's kind of one of the points I was thinking of when I was looking at the questions and what we were going to talk about, is that a lot of the issues that I would see before have now changed in coaching, is where a lot of people I'm working with are having more issues with now. There's so much flexibility that what do I do with this flexibility?
Yeah.
I need someone to be accountable to as well.
Yeah, that's the double-edged sword. And that's the issue I actually had in university. There was so much flexibility that I was just like, well, I'm just gonna stay in bed then, and I wouldn't turn up to lectures sometimes. So like, when I don't enjoy a job, that's when flexibility becomes an issue, because I'll be like, well, I'm just gonna turn up like to the last minute. And so that's interesting.
What would Gloria, what would you say to someone then that came to you and said, I've got too much flexibility, like I've got too much free reign on what to do, and it means that I'm not doing anything?
So usually we'll try time blocking at first and see how that works, and see if we can kind of prioritize what needs to be done in a given day at their job and make sure that that's on the top of the list. So if nothing else gets done, at least that gets done. And then we'll say, maybe at 12 o'clock every day, you do that thing that absolutely must get done. We'll time block everything else, but if it doesn't get done, we'll try again the next day. And then we'll also kind of talk about having conversations with supervisors about what their specific needs are as workers. Sometimes people feel comfortable disclosing their ADHD, but sometimes it's not safe to do that because workplaces don't understand, or there's too many misconceptions that you then have to work around to disclose. So in that case, kind of saying, it would be really helpful for me if we could meet every Wednesday and talk about all the things I'm working on, and, check the things off and plan it out and create a system in which like that person cannot like hide at their jobs, if that makes sense. The boss knows that we planned X, Y, and Z, and they'll know the following week if you did or did not do that thing.
That sounds like something I'm going to use.
It does sound good. I did kind of like that you said that you would get like someone to do something at the same time like every day to like a kind of form a routine. And I really like the fact that you said if it doesn't get done today, you can try again, because I find like, I'm sure a lot of people with ADHD are like this as well. I can be really hard on myself, and it's just like you do have a new day to start again. So I really like the fact that you said that, because it's just like some of us maybe spend too much time like judging ourselves and being too harsh to ourselves, and sometimes we kind of just need to be a bit more kinder. I know personally I really struggle with beating myself up about stuff. So I really, really liked that you said that, like, you can try again, it's okay.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest issues, probably on the top 5 list of things I deal with in coaching with people, is being hard on ourselves, not giving ourselves grace for not, being perfect and getting everything done right the first time. And I think that a lot of people too have the thought that if I beat myself up enough, that'll make me better, or I'll do better if I, shame myself more. But usually what happens is when we shame ourselves, we actually end up doing worse because we feel not so great. And so trying to teach people that concept is often difficult because a lot of people are so connected to that guilt, shame feeling that makes them keep going. But disconnecting from that and accepting ourselves is so freeing and actually extremely productive.
But it's like when you're so used to it, that becomes your normal. And so when you start not feeling that way or not having that thinking pattern, it feels uncomfortable and unnatural, and it's really difficult to like reprogram your thinking and kind of say like, no, this is the right way. It just feels weird right now because we're not used to it, yeah, but awesome.
Yeah, and I don't know about you guys, but like I know for me, I didn't just wake up one day and then that's the kind of mindset I have, is because that's what I've been hearing in school from my parents, from even friends who are like, oh, well, I feel like that sometimes. Is like, well, I'm like this every day, multiple times a day. So if the outside world isn't telling us like it's okay, why would we? And it's so important to kind of dismantle all those other people's words in our mind as well. It's not only us.
Yeah. There was another, because we obviously Salom beautifully does not have the problem of lateness, but the rest of us do. Kind of just wondering like what your advice is on that. Like I know like I have a reasonable adjustment in place right now that's kind of like I can arrive at work between 9 and 10, and so it gives me like that kind of, I aim to arrive at 9, but it means if I'm late I'm not beating myself up about it for the rest of the day, so that really works for me. But I know at the same time, again, that's like that flexibility, and it's kind of like removing, we live in a society that runs on people being on time, so I'm just wondering if you have any other kind of like advice about that, or
I mean, for me, I think it just links to kind of like, I believe I'm like multiply neurodivergent, and I believe like the other side of my neurodivergence really, really needs structure and is a bit rigid. So for me, like, I don't like going into work at different times in a day. So even I try to go to the office every Monday and Tuesday, and I try to give myself the time range of between 8 and 8:45. But I guess the things that motivate me on the days where my ADHD brain is just like, oh, can't you just work from home, or 5 more minutes, 15 more minutes, is that I wake up way earlier than I'm actually meant to leave the house, because I'm not a morning person, and I'm not a winter person either. In summertime, I actually sleep with my curtains open so that I wake up with the sun. So that can be anytime between 4:30 and 6 o'clock in the morning, so that I just have that first alarm. Then I have another alarm in like half an hour and an hour, just to kind of rouse myself again. Then I have an alarm to say, you need to leave the house now. Then I have an alarm that says, you should be halfway to the office by now. And then that's how I keep, like, I know, like, okay, it's that alarm. So what am I doing right now? Okay.
So it's basically you're like, you don't allow for time blindness, because there's just a constant reminder of what time it is.
Exactly, because I'll touch my phone, there's a cat video, I'm gone, and then the second thing is like, if I really need to go into the office, I remind myself that if I leave later, the commute is going to be worse. Like commuting in London is a hellscape. It's hellfire.
That's
so I'm
absolute truth.
There's going to be less people, so, and that helps motivate me as well. So yeah, those are the two things.
Awesome. Do you have anything to add, Gloria?
I love that. Yeah, I usually recommend to people that you have checkpoints in your morning. I think that sometimes when we try to plan, we try to over plan. There's like the all or nothing. There's the over planning or under planning. We're either
Yeah.
planning it minute by minute, or we're like not planning at all and we're just winging it. So I
That's
really
so
like
true.
the idea. Totally.
But it's
Hey,
like,
that
well, that is, I literally, you just blew my mind then, because I just realized I literally don't plan anything, or like every moment, like brush your teeth for 3 whole minutes and then you have to
yeah.
stop, or like yeah. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the thing about the minute by minute planning is like it can work for a couple days, but the sustainability of that is the difficult part. So the checkpoints are really helpful where, by 8:30 you need to be getting dressed, and by like 8:45 you need to be headed towards the door, and making that time that like you need to be a little earlier than what time you actually should be leaving the house. Of course, we all know that that's the case, and sometimes it still doesn't happen. But usually if there are a couple checkpoints along the way of like, this is what time I wake up, I need to be eating by this time, I need to be leaving by this time, that can be helpful. But then there are times we're still going to be a little late. So,
And that's why I give
Okay.
myself that grace. It doesn't
Yeah,
have
yeah.
to be in the office by just this time period.
Yeah, and saying that, actually, like I because like I have this thing of like I am late, but like I never really intend to be. I find that like if I wake up like 15 minutes before I need to leave the house, I don't have time to, I'm just like, right, these are like the absolute key things I have to do before I leave, and then I'm out and I'm on time. But if I give myself like 2 hours, it's that thing that you said of like, just I've like planned everything in those 2 hours of what I'm going to do, and then it just gets lost. And yeah.
Yeah, because you're like, you know what, I've got enough time, I can go make a cup of
Yeah.
tea. Like, it'll be all right.
I can start reorganizing my drawers, it's fine.
Funny you say that, because I did that yesterday.
But
And I
that's
was
why
meant
it's
to do something
So funny.
else.
But that's why it's essential that it's always the same thing. Like mine is take my medication, brush my teeth. If I didn't shower the night before, shower. Actually, it's not take my medication, it's take my first medication, do the mouth stuff, then eat, take my medication, my ADHD meds, because if I don't eat, I feel sick, then get dressed, and then leave. So if I do start switching things up, that's when it becomes chaos.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
the key is
yeah.
like doing the same. Don't try and be brand new. Don't try and like release a new TV show fast.
Just one episode.
just do the original. We don't need a remake, you know.
Yeah.
It's getting ready for work, the original edition. So yeah, that's also very key.
facts. Absolutely. Don't change it up. That's when things fall apart.
So what are your thoughts on disclosing your diagnosis to your employer? When would you say would be the right time to also disclose it? I personally feel that being transparent from the interview stages has helped me choose an employer who will accommodate my needs, which is great, but it can be hard to be honest about it.
Yeah, so I'm speaking from a UK perspective with our UK labour laws, of course. This year I've started disclosing a bit more and more, but I think I'm going to work towards just disclosing beforehand, just because I'm of the mind of, if they don't want to take the time to just understand what my neurodivergence or ADHD means in the context of what I can do after they've already seen my resume, my CV, why would I want to work with them? And
yes.
I don't really want to teach them. I don't want to be their advocate to hold their hand to reach that place, even if like they might be well-meaning or something. I just personally myself, I don't have the energy for that. I would hope that they could be proactive enough to, you know, watch how to ADHD on YouTube, for example. She makes amazing, very easy digestible videos, like
She's
that
awesome.
bare minimum effort. Yeah, exactly. So I think I'm going to start disclosing more and more now, because even I applied for a job last month and I didn't disclose. I just said, could I have the interview questions beforehand so that I can prepare? And they said no, because it's not fair to the other people who didn't ask. And I'm of the mindset, if you don't ask, you don't get. What is it my business that they didn't have the foresight to ask for something that would help them? What's that any
Well,
business of mine, you know? So already I was just like, you people didn't even ask me why. Like they couldn't even get to the why stage. They were just like, no, it's unfair, unknowingly putting a disadvantage on someone who would really actually benefit from that.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I take it a step further. I put it on my CV. I literally don't want to work for any company that would discriminate against me for it. However, I am aware that being able to make that decision is an absolute privilege. You know, not everyone, people need to work, and we don't live in a world where everyone is accepting, and sometimes you need to take a job where they're
I completely understand. Like if I'm doing temp work, short-term work, I may or may not disclose depending on what the nature of the work is. Like I know I can make my own adjustments in work and run with it. But I'm deciding if I'm going for long-term contracts or permanent contracts, I'm gonna start disclosing, because at the end of the day, eventually it will affect me.
yeah, definitely. Gloria, how does that compare to like the US and how it works there? Because I know like employment law is a bit different. They have different protections and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I would say it's similar in many ways, but the thing that I'm aware of is that they always have loopholes. If someone
Okay.
wants to get out of getting in trouble, they probably could find a way. For example, they could find a way to say that there's some other reason why they let someone go other than their diagnosis, and things like that. So I'm very aware of the fact that there are people, again, who don't have the privilege to kind of pick and choose their job or have a job that accommodates them. But I am 1,000% with you all that I would never want to work for someone who didn't accept my neurodiversity. That's the point that I'm at now, I think. But again, I think it's a privilege that I can be at that point now. Like that. In the past, I would go to a job and I would see what it was like first and see what I needed help with, or if I needed help, because there are jobs that I've been to that I was really okay. I didn't need accommodations. I mean, yeah, I was late, but for the most part, like I could pretty much thrive at the job. And then there's other jobs where I needed like a million accommodations. In my mind now at this point, I wouldn't want a job that required me to have so many accommodations. I would want to have a job that worked for my brain so much so that there were minimal accommodations necessary. But that's also coming from, I'm now an entrepreneur. So my last job I did, and this was actually an internship, not really a paid job anyway, but I told them on day one, I told everybody, I told my coworkers, I just said, I mean, I'm online anyway, so I'm sure like there's people who like knew either way. But I told them, you know, I have ADHD. This is what it is. And I'd be open with it all the time. There were some people who were like, me too, and like really accommodating, who acted strangely about it. It's a tricky thing for me to say what other people should do. You know, I think it varies so much. Knowing what industry you're in matters, what where you are in your career, if you're new or if you've been in your career for a long time, it matters. And then whether you think you're going to need accommodations or not.
Yeah, I think the reason why I'm like choosing to now declare is for like if I need to go in the office, I might need noise cancelling headsets, because I'm just like really I don't go into the office to socialize. I go in for the routine. So like if it's like a noisy office, I just need that kind of accommodation, and it might be an extra cost. So it's kind of like, I don't want to join a place and they're like, oh, that's too pricey, we can't pay for that kind of stuff. And then the second point is about productivity, because although there are many really good places to work, I think for me, how my productivity manifests is that when I'm in the hyper focusing mode and I'm pumping out lots of work very quickly that takes other people quite a long time, it might get misinterpreted that that's my constant, that's my baseline. And I guess for me, I just want to kind of set the tone, because sometimes I don't self-regulate, I don't regulate myself. And in my last job, my manager, he was really good to just like, after we talked about stuff and he could tell I was getting really excited and I was like, I'm gonna do this, that. He was like, make sure that you go for dinner as well. Not dinner, sorry, go for lunch. He was like, make sure you get lunch though.
Yeah.
Have you had lunch? Even those small tiny things, because he knew, because I told him that like,
and it's not hard. It's not hard. Like
yeah,
that, yeah. I get you.
So like that really helped. Even those things of just people knowing that like, oh, Salon might be going into hyper focus mode. Let's just have a check on them. So it's even those small tiny things as well that I'm just hoping can come out of disclosing as well. Because I agree, for me, I see accommodations as a result of a capitalist society that hasn't caught up to understanding that disabled people are just like everyone else, and they have value, and their value is not based on what they can produce and make money for. It's just that we are living, breathing people who deserve to exist. So if that was actually factored in, there'd be very few quote unquote accommodations that we might actually have. And of course, everyone experiences ADHD differently. Some people can just have an ADHD coach and actually that helps them to regulate their day-to-day life. But some people need like very high doses of medication to be able to, you know, get through the day. So, but even with that, I think a lot of the things that accommodations are for is actually to mitigate for quite an ableist society, global society.
It's really interesting you say that, because someone I was speaking to someone the other day and they were telling me about like, so you know, like pubs, for example. Have you ever noticed that like outside pubs there's always a picture? There's rarely like words. It's always like there's like a kind of like flag thing hanging outside with a picture like of a horse. Very clear, like there's colors and that kind of thing. And it's because back in the day, obviously we've always had pubs, right? And back in the day people couldn't read, so that's how they would say, oh, we're going to go to the horse, because it was a horse picture, right? So it was like a nationwide accommodation for people that couldn't read, but never considered an accommodation. And like now, you know, like simple things like, I don't know, for me it's a simple thing like flexible working, being able to work from home or work in the office. They're called accommodations as if it's like something extra, you know, like some kind of like, I don't know, special treatment or something, when actually no, like the majority of the population, regardless of like your neurodivergence, could really probably like be a lot more efficient and have much better well-being with this like quote unquote accommodation, you know. And it's just like it's really strange how times have changed, how that was just such a simple, like easy thing for them to do. Like it's literally still now on every pub, you know, you don't have to be able to read to know what pub you're going to, and yet you have to like fight for these
it's really
other things.
But I think there's a simple explanation for that, because pubs back then were for the people. They were owned by the people, they were run by the people. Is where the working class and the peasants, they owned that space, so they dictated how it would happen, basically. Obviously there was the landlords and stuff, but it was the people who owned the pubs, you know. And so obviously they wanted to attract them. If they don't know what the place is like called or anything, how will they attract customers? And like, it's funny you say like as simple as flexi time. I'm going even lower, as simple as an agenda before.
No, I can't argue that one. I suppose like there was one point that Gloria made as well about like not wanting to like take a job that requires lots of accommodations. And this isn't like a pre-sent question, but I do want to ask, like, do you think that is more important as like a neurodivergent person, to be really particular about the kind of role you're going for? And like, how do you think that that's like entirely specific to the individual, or do you think there are general rules about ADHD of like roles you should kind of steer away from? Sorry, I hope that was a clear question.
Was, yes. And I think it goes perfectly into what you all were saying about accommodations. And that's kind of how I think about it now. It's like accommodations are only accommodations because we are not included naturally in the workplace, and what we need is not taken into account. And when I think about jobs that don't require accommodations, I do think about jobs that are naturally considering the whole, and that everyone's going to need something different. Like, I find it interesting, for example, that I have friends who need to ask to be able to put earplugs in at work. Like, that's ridiculous.
Really?
Wow.
Plugs in.
That's wild.
Things like that.
I used to get, when I was at an old job, I would have my headset on because that's what I need, and I'd constantly get feedback like, "Oh, people feel like they can't talk to you."
I put my thing on
shoulder.
busy, and I got that. Yeah, if
I
I'm
didn't
distracted
listen.
while I'm working, I can't. It's really hard for me to like get back into it. And then I got comments like saying like, "Oh, yeah, people feel like you're not helpful because they can't just like approach you whenever they need to." And it's like, because I'm not available all the time. I'm available like when I say I'm available.
Like, you're right, you can't approach me right now, I'm busy. That's why.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So I think like a workplace that understands those basic things and kind of accounts for what everyone needs. When I did inclusion work in schools, the whole idea was that we create a school environment where the accommodations that are available are really just for everybody to use or not use. So no one has to say, I have this thing or that thing, but it's more so like everyone can have what they need. They can ask for what they need, or naturally it's in the curriculum that everybody has what they need, like what you were talking about with the pubs. So I think that ideally that would be the kind of workplace someone with ADHD would want to be in. And I've learned through coaching, I've worked with people who do all sorts of different things and they're successful at it. And so I think that there are some ideal situations in terms of, for example, if there's a job that you're having to constantly respond to something that's like immediate, that's hard to you can't procrastinate on something that's happening right now. Like if you're a nurse and you have to attend to someone, you like don't have a choice. So I think jobs like that are really helpful, but that's not to say that those are the only things that we can do.
Like jobs with like a very clear sense of urgency. Like he absolutely cannot not do this task, and it needs to be done like right now. There's no time to think about it or get distracted, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, and variety, like nothing mundane. You're doing the exact same thing every single day in the exact same way. And I found for myself like enough structure where it's kind of predictable, but also enough variety where I still am not doing the same thing every day is like the perfect sweet spot.
Yeah, I find that too. Variety, like there's good structure, but not too much, just like you said. But like for me, I could never be a nurse. I could never do those high intensity jobs. But like I could do a job where I do a little bit of events, where coming up to the event, there's a lot of busy work, and you got to be ready for the launch and the guests and stuff. But then I can really just decompress and then go back to the downtime of doing some admin and things like that. What I really found interesting when going to like a lot of ADHD babe support groups is that a lot of people say like, I hate Excel spreadsheets. I never want to see another spreadsheet ever in my life. I love Excel. I love Excel. I love a little formula. Index match me all day, but I still like being on my feet a little bit as well. So
yeah,
it's
think fun like, for the hyper focus, the admin stuff.
Yeah,
like,
the hyper
really
focus side.
Yeah,
it takes you away. And I really get that hit of like rush when I figure out a formula that was
yeah.
And like no, I lost my train of thought.
Oh, sorry. Oh man. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I remember now. Sorry. So the thing I was going to say is that I don't try to pick careers or like I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that. At this point in the last couple of years, I've been like, what tasks do I enjoy? And something that like my mentor also brought up, but something I was already doing, was identifying like what kind of tasks give me energy and what kind of tasks detract energy, and how much. Because sometimes you are going to do things that take energy away from you or are mundane, but how much can you endure is the main point. So sometimes when I'm reading through job descriptions and things like that, I'm trying to figure out like, is this 20% of my job or is this 60% of my job, and would I be able to handle that? So yeah, those are the kinds of things I think would also help, because of course ADHD is a full spectrum. We all got different upbringings, interests, etc., etc. So it might not necessarily be the career choice all the time. Sometimes it's more about like what is actually giving you that good hit of energy, like my Excel spreadsheets.
Big shout out to Microsoft.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I mean, like, I've always chosen jobs like based on purpose, you know, like, does it align with like where I want to go? I need to be really invested in like a cause, and that cause needs to be like reflected in my job role and my career. But I actually never, like that thing that you just said about looking at the job spec and trying to work out, you know, is this 20% of my role, is this 60% of my role? Isn't something that I ever thought of doing, but actually like an incredible trick.
And something I actually
Yeah.
need to get better at is figuring that out in the interview stages, because like that's really, I'm really bad with interviews. Not that I'm bad at interviews, I'm bad at getting information out, because I take a lot of things at their word, basically. So if I ask a question, they're like, yeah, we blah blah blah, I'm like, okay, that's what you said you do, so that's what's gonna happen. And I'm really curious about how we actually figure out if the workplace we've applied for is actually who they say they are, in terms of like accepting and understanding our ADHD, and versus maybe they're just doing lip service.
Yeah.
It can be kind of hard to work out if like they're being genuine as well, and not just kind of just trying to go with like whatever you're saying and just being like, yeah, that's fine, but not really actually taking it in.
Yeah,
because that's the issue that I have had with past jobs. I've asked them like, oh, is this, and it's not really been like directly saying like, oh, because of ADHD, it's just that I know in the past that has caused me struggle. So I've tried to ask questions to kind of eke it out, but then obviously a lot of employers want to say how they wish they were or aspire to be, or just to sell it, like you said, Shireen. And it's kind of dealing with that disappointment of what has been told to you not really being the truth once you actually get into the workplace, which causes a lot of stress and heartbreak. And the process of finding a job can be really stressful already. So yeah, I'm just, that's something that might not, a lot of people might not think about, but it's also about like how you ask questions in interviews strategically to kind of see if they contradict themselves. And that's something I'm really trying to improve on in my interview skills, to ensure that I actually find what I want.
So just to kind of like give some, I don't know, a little concrete action plan for our listeners, like wondering if we could just talk about what kinds of accommodations can be asked for in the workplace. There are like some obvious ones, things like being able to show up in a time window, or having things like noise cancelling headphones. We're just wondering if there's any others that aren't quite as common, and also like if you can like share any that people could ask for with or without disclosing the diagnosis, because I think sometimes, you need an accommodation, but it shouldn't necessarily mean that you have to tell people you have ADHD. So just kind of like exploring that as well.
But would that not be kind of hard? Because I kind of imagine that they'd be more like, well, why do you need this? And then like some people might not want to say, but I don't know. I guess it depends on like the company and stuff you're working for.
I
I
think
think
it depends
there's
on
a
the
way.
accommodation.
I think there's a way, and it's a buzzword in the working world, ways of working. My ways of working are the way that I work best is this is how we can have a good collaborative working relationship. That's where you
I
kind of,
like that.
if it's not about like disclosing, I really work best. I really get energized by like agendas. They really help me structure, especially when it's a busy work day. I know what I'm coming into the meeting with so that I can just jump into this meeting and prepare as well for the meeting. So it'd be great if we could start adopting agendas. You could even start taking the initiative to recap points of actions at the end of meetings. So instead of being like, oh, okay, yeah, bye, 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 it's like, okay, just to be clear, my actions are da 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 da. Is there anywhere that I wasn't clear, or was there anywhere any misinterpretation there, or did I miss anything, or is there anything else you need from me? So doing that recap at the end of a meeting and then typing it up, because I really struggle with listening and typing as well. So I'm terrible at meeting notes and minutes. So that also helps me gain back that time to actually type those notes up again and then email it around, for example. Yeah, so those kind of things there, you're easily getting and I don't like to call it accommodations because those are just good ways of working. It's got nothing to do with, they're just good ways of working, all of these things. So, and a lot of companies don't adopt these kinds of methods, which is a shame. And then, you know, it's just having that kind of conversation with your manager and just leading by example as well, because if it's yielding such good results, why would they want to fight against it if they're a reasonable manager or teammate? You know what I mean? And a lot of the time in a past job, I just did it how I want. Like, if, for example, you know, when you email from a team inbox, maybe you don't know, but when you email from a team box and they go out of their way to delete the team inbox's email address and put your personal work email in there, it's like, I emailed you from there for a reason. So then you go back and put the team inbox in, like training people in the office to like follow your processes, basically, but not very explicitly. So yeah, that's the kind of things that I do, because
those are really, really good. I agree. When you say you don't want to call them accommodations, that's exactly how I feel. Like, it doesn't matter what kind of brain you have. Everyone works differently. Everyone needs something different. And though for us, it might be, you know, different than what most people need, it's still a need that we have. So an extra thing I think that might be exclusive to us, though, is maybe asking for some funding for an ADHD coach. I've definitely had people pay me for coaching through jobs. Jobs are more open to that than I think people are willing to think, and it doesn't hurt to ask. And if that's something too that you don't want to share with your immediate boss, that's something you can ask HR about. And then also asking for a certain type of supervision. It's kind of like what Salam was saying, very similar, is that, you know, telling your supervisor what you need to be successful. Like, if they're very hands-off and you have a lot of freedom and they're not checking in, so it's kind of hard for you to follow through and get things done, kind of telling them what it is you need from them in order to, you know, be on task and plan things and get things done, knowing that someone is watching you and watching that you're going to get it.
Holding you accountable.
That accountability piece.
Do you know, it's weird, like that, just that point you made about the supervision, because I've struggled with that a little bit, asking for that, because it feels like I'm
inviting a micromanager.
No, well, that, but it also feels like I'm a child. Like I'm
Yeah, I was
and I feel bad. Like I feel like I'm an adult actually. I'm 28 and I should be able to do this work without having someone watching over my shoulder, but I can't. And because society's told me that that's like a childish thing, that like that I, you know, I need someone there to make sure I do it. I feel I really struggle with that particular accommodation because I know I need it. And I know whenever I've had it, I've done really well with it. But I just feel like tiny, you know, like that. I just struggle with that one. So just like how do you move past that feeling or that thought kind of thing?
I think how you request it and like what you're specifically asking for makes a difference. Like I've had people just simply request a certain meeting every week. And during that meeting, you know, they prioritize projects where like, what do you want me to do? Like absolutely top of the list things you want me to do. And can we also talk about each step of the projects that I'm working on and what I have to do? Things like that. It's like you're asking for accountability, but you're not asking for it in a way where, you know, they're telling you anything super specific that they wouldn't tell anyone else. It's just that I need more clarity on what it is you want me to do and when you want me to do it. And I want to be able to follow up with you about it. And getting past, you know, the aspect of it that, you know, where you feel like a child, I think that, you know, sometimes we forget that it isn't us. You know, it isn't are like the people that are, you know, defective, but maybe people aren't being clear, truly and honestly.
Yeah.
And we tend to take the blame all the time because we're so used to, you know, with ADHD feeling like we're the problem.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not.
Yeah. And if we can circle back to the whole like quitting things because we feel like we can't do it. When I was saying like it's not only us, there's a whole circle outside of us that is also contributing. So yeah, we shouldn't put everything on our shoulders ourselves. And like literally you're just asking for more touch points and one-to-ones from your manager. Very normal work things that people have. And like I had a manager who wanted to do touch points like twice a week or like really, really frequently. And I was like, we need to adjust it to see what works well for how I work and adjust it. And don't, especially in like your probation period, don't be shy to be like, I just really like to see how our styles mesh together, to see how frequently we should be having these meetings. And then caveat it by like, it might increase with a certain project, because obviously you'll be, well, if you do project work, you might just need more touch points. It's very variable, and just like our productivity,
like you said, that touch points.
Yeah, because like just like with our productivity, what we need is always going to go up and down. There is no baseline. It's never going to be permanent. Even if it's the same for 3 weeks, it might change on the 4th week, and that's perfectly okay. And like I hope that with more and more open ways to managing that, more managers embrace and understand those kinds of changes, because they're a manager but they have a manager, so hopefully they can be empathetic to what you're feeling and need as well. And then to the point about like ADHD coaches, in the UK we have Access to Work, which is a government funded scheme where your workplace and the government pay towards funding for ADHD coach, an assistant, several other, I'm just trying to stick to the ADHD stuff, related stuff, but there's so many other stuff. So if you have dyslexia, you usually internally you can get the systems that help you like screen read and all those kinds of things. So definitely like check out Access to Work, because legally you would be able to access that. It is our right. I'm not sure how it is if you're not diagnosed yet. I think if you're in the process of diagnosis, I'm not sure, because with the increase in diagnoses during the pandemic, I know they're getting a bit touchy with the rules, but that's the resource we have in the UK.
What's, oh no, sorry, go on, Shereen.
I was just going to say it's quite good to know about the what did you call it? Access to Work.
Yeah, Access to Work.
It's quite good to know about that, because I've not heard about that, so that's quite good that there is a resource. Yeah,
exactly.
Can I just jump in on that Access to Work thing? I'll have to put myself in. But actually, I just found out that for access to work, if you work in multiple roles, so for example, I work as a freelancer doing voiceover, and I work as a payee, like an employee of someone, and I can apply for access to work for both of those things.
Even if you're self-employed, I believe you can apply for access to work. That's true.
Okay.
Yeah, I just haven't done it because, well, I'm payee right now, but I know with my executive function skills, I'd be like, I want someone to hold my hand through this.
I wanted to ask, is there an equivalent in the US?
No, that sounds amazing. I would love to, go out there and request that we have something like that. In fact, that is a thought in my mind. I mean, we have programs individually at jobs like that, but there's no overall help for every job.
Mm. Okay. That doesn't sound very fun.
What about reasonable adjustments? Are there reasonable adjustment laws, at least, that they have to meet?
Yes, and that depends on how many employees a company has and all of that. But generally, if you have ADHD and it impacts your life negatively, or, if it impacts your ability to do your job, then you can have reasonable accommodations.
Oh, cool.
Just like one more thing on accommodations, because I also feel like whenever I've like tried to find resources and things like that, they're quite focused on like ADD. Like I'm yet to find like I struggle, one of my biggest like symptoms of my ADHD is my hyperactivity, like not being able to sit down and like just need constantly fidgeting, and therefore being distracting to others in the workplace. So just any like ideas on how and what kind of accommodations a person could ask for if hyperactivity is like one of their main difficulties with work, especially if they have, for example, like an office job.
Standing desk. And I think with Gloria's point about time blocking, maybe agreeing with your manager time blocks for you that allow you to just maybe leave the office or just go for or do something. Like at the end of the day, your job is to do the job that you've been asked to do. If you produce it within the deadlines, a reasonable manager should allow you to be like, yeah, as long as you do it, you're here for this meeting, you're here for this important thing, like just manage your day basically. Like some managers even say like, I don't mind if you clock off early 3 p.m. and then work the rest of the hours in the evening because you get a rush of energy at that time. Standing desk is one that you could have, and more offices are having standing desks, although in limited parts of the office, so you have to fight for them.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that definitely movement breaks, standing desk. Well, movement. See, I hate that. That's another like accommodation type thing.
Because it should just, we should just be able to go for like walks and stuff, right? But yeah.
Yes, I think in the many workplaces now, that's not an issue. But when I think of hyperactivity, I also think about the fact that we can be really talkative sometimes. And sometimes I know for me, having a meeting, the meeting will go way longer than it needs to go because we're just chatting away. So like having accommodations like, an agenda ahead of time and, ways for us to stay on task during a meeting is also super helpful for hyperactive type.
Awesome. Thank you.
I love how Kessie, obviously people can't see us, but I love how Kessie is just like her head's down, taking
notes. Look, listen, this is useful.
Yeah, but you can listen back to it.
I can, no, but I just,
no, it's got to commit into the brain, isn't it, when you write it in your hands? Which is actually another thing about working. Like everything is digital these days, and a lot of people like really value the quote unquote eye contact stuff and looking like you're attentive in the meeting. And I've noticed a lot when I was doing interviews online, people would keep apologizing to me like, oh sorry, if I look down I'm just writing. Like obviously you are, what else would you be doing? Like come on. And it's kind of that kind of nervous energy that you have to keep up appearances and look like you're attentive. I have inattentive ADHD. My eyes are going to glaze over. And I remember one team meeting, I was just like, woo, my leg was bouncing. I was like fiddling. I was just like, oh God, this meeting needs to end soon. And then a colleague actually left the room, a colleague that I knew also has ADHD. And I messaged them later and I was like, wow, I really couldn't like stay still in this meeting. And they said, yeah, that's why I went to the toilet, because I couldn't sit for any longer. So it's kind of also like your teammates being aware that just because you're fidgeting, just because you look like you're not paying attention, it doesn't mean that you're not.
You're not,
And like
yeah.
if you were to bring fiddle toys, if that helps you,
Mm.
like if you're at the end of the day, if you're doing your job, what is the problem?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're doing your
That should
job
be the
well.
catchphrase, shouldn't it? If I'm doing my job, what's your problem?
In it.
Yeah, we do. I'm writing it
Merchandise.
down. It's going down. Oh my God. If I'm doing my job, what's your... I'll never remember otherwise. I'm gonna make it a t-shirt. Oh guys,
want royalties.
yeah. This has been such a good talk. I've learned so much. Just like a little recap, we spoke about, oh look, now my notes all become a mess. So we kind of just talked about some of the challenges we face having ADHD in the workplace, and then like kind of explored like how we might like mitigate those, the kind of like how we feel about disclosing a diagnosis in the workplace, and also like looked at what kind of roles are, I'm not going to say like more ideal, but things that we should be taking into account when we're looking for roles as an ADHDer. And yeah, and then we've kind of spoken about accommodations and kind of like professional help, and things that are available to us. Unfortunately, not access to work, not quite in the US, but we'll be soon. Well, we can campaign for those kind of things one day. Thank you both so much for joining us this week.
Thank you for having us. And if I can be cheeky to kind of summarize what I felt today was
let's all
about.
summarize how. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, no, because I forgot to also, I wrote like, I've been writing all the things that I found interesting and then I forgot to say them.
Classic, on brand. I think to summarize what I've been feeling for our talk today is that we need to unlock our inner voice that's literally telling us what we need. Like a lot of the time we've grown up with other people telling us how we are, the quality of what we're doing and all of that. And it's become like the fake voice, like speaking, like what's it called, the id, your inner voice. It's become the fake inner voice, and our real inner voice is literally there being like, no, you like doing these things. It's not because you suck that you can't do these things. It's just that it literally takes energy from you, so stop trying to do that. Don't be what you're not. So I think for me the recap has been really take some time to listen to what your inner voice is really telling you, what you need and what you want and what you value.
Yeah. I actually just thought of something. Like for instance, I've been out of work for a while. So Gloria, what would you say to someone who has been out of work for like, let's say, years, and they are ready to go back, but they don't know like how to get started or what type of jobs to look for, or I don't know, like how would you suggest to someone, like how could they overcome it? Sorry if that was a little bit like all over the place.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Very good question. I oftentimes work with people who are kind of in that stage where they're either wanting to move to a different job, but they're not sure where to move, or, you know, they're looking for a job. And oftentimes to the point of Salam, that people know what they want to do somewhere in the back of their minds, but there's some kind of doubt about their abilities, or if it's possible that they can do that thing that they really want to do, or is there a market for the skill that I have? And my answer is always yes, there is. Yes, you can. Look into it before you tell yourself no, it's not possible. And because oftentimes we're shutting ourselves off from an opportunity before we even know if the opportunity is a possibility. So just start Googling the things that are on your mind and looking it up and doing research and getting in touch with what you really do want to be doing and what you're good at and what energizes you. And that is key for us to feel like we have a purpose in what we're doing and feel like we're contributing, and that we're able to use the skills that we have, and that the weaknesses that we may have are either overshadowed in that environment because of our strengths, or that, you know, we're using so much of our strengths that there are other people doing the things that we're not so great at, like the paperwork part, and we're just able to kind of do what we're great at. And sometimes there's a process where we have to work up to that and start somewhere, but I think that there is somewhere for all of us, and we have to believe that first and foremost.
Yeah. I don't know, I kind of just thought of it because like it's kind of something that I deal with chronic pain as well, and it's kind of like something that I want to get back to, but it's like I don't know how I manage my ADHD and my chronic pain, and being out of work for like such a long time, the idea of it is just so daunting, like so daunting. It's like, where do I start? What do I do? Like, can I do this? But I do like what you said about how like to not cut yourself off from opportunities before what is sorry, what is it I'm looking for? Don't cut yourself off of opportunities before you even try. I think that makes sense.
Don't
Sorry.
neglect
And
yourself.
like I have chronic pain as well, so I completely understand what you mean, because you already get brain fog with chronic pain. You already get that constant fatigue with chronic pain. So when your ADHD is like ADHDing really hard that day, and then your chronic pain is like holding hands, skipping down of a country lane to work against you, it can be very daunting. But yeah, just like what you and Gloria said, like if you don't start, then like you're never going to get going. Don't think about all the other things. Just be like, this is what I'm interested in. Next step. Like, don't try and do big picture things. Literally just take it step by step. If you find yourself spiraling, because I spiral a lot, so I like to take things step by step sometimes and stop with the what ifs, which is very hard when so many ideas are going on in my head. But yeah, stop going like, oh, what if blah blah blah. Just do it. Like,
I'm a very what if person, unfortunately.
You're gonna have to train yourself. You're gonna have to train yourself, or get a career coach, who can,
or an
help
ADHD
guide you.
coach.
Exactly.
Get yourself Gloria.
Get yourself Gloria.
Yeah. We need to round up now, unfortunately, because it's been so lovely speaking to you guys. Yeah, just wondering, like, if either of you, what do you have anything coming up right now? Anything you'd like to share?
Okay, so in half an hour, I'm having my autism assessment. I'm just doing it for like just to say like I've done it. For me, I know that I'm not only ADHD. But yeah, so I'm having that in 30 minutes. And then next week I'm seeing an old work colleague, staying on the topic, who was really accommodating to my needs when I would have my headset on, and we actually worked out a system that if my headset mouthpiece was up, she could talk to me. If it was down, don't disturb me. So I'm looking forward to that. I haven't seen her in 3 years face to face.
I like that.
How about you, Gloria?
So I am planning a routine workshop right now. So yeah, it's a live workshop, 5 weeks. People can come and learn how to make a routine. I think that's really relevant to this conversation, because part of it will be time blocking for work, having a morning routine, having an evening routine, all of that. So that starts, I was just talking to my assistant, July 20th, the 20th, Wednesday, yes. And that will be through August 17th.
Okay.
And so I'll post about that. That'll be on my website. I'm trying to think of, I think.
Could you share your website?
Yes, gloriajoysherrod.com. So everything's there. Merch is coming out within the next week. It's done. I just have to put it on my website. So that's the new stuff coming up.
Awesome. Thank you.
So if anyone would like to connect with you, how can they get in touch?
So they can find me on my website, gloriajoysherrod.com, and my last name is Sherrod. And then my Instagram is X Adulting with ADHD X. Same on TikTok. My Facebook, Gloria Joy Sherrod, like my website. And that is it.
Yeah. Awesome.
For me, if you want to get in touch with me, join ADHD Babes and get access to the Discord, because that's where I live. That's where I expend my social energy. I'm not consistent otherwise in other places, but my Instagram is Salom with an R. I'm just chaotic on there. I wouldn't recommend that you try to engage with me there.
You're great on there. You're absolutely great. You are the life and soul of ADHD Babes Discord. This is so great. Don't forget, guys, you can also reach out to us with a message for our Dear Babes advice episodes hosted by me and our founder, Vivian. You can send us a voice note or written message by clicking the link in the show notes. And also you'll find a link on the website, www.adhdbabes.com.
Ooh, I'm looking forward to that. That sounds really good.
Yeah.
I love the sound
like an
of that.
agony on, Yeah. I'm really excited. I can't wait.
If you'd like to join the ADHD Babes or learn more, you'll find the links to our website and our social pages in the show notes, as well as visiting adhdbabes.com.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like today's episode, please feel free to follow so you don't miss future episodes. We'd be so pleased to have you. If you could leave us a rating and a review and let everyone know your thoughts, that would be amazing.
So we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of ADHD Babes, the podcast. If you're a Black woman or non-binary person and needs help and support in managing your ADHD or advice on diagnosis, please visit adhdbabes.com. No clinical diagnosis is required to join. Join us in 2 weeks for a new episode. Until then, all the love from the ADHD Babes team.